Hello. Okay, so this is the third episode of ExplorePod. ExplorePod is basically a pod that um, that transports from this end, from my end to your end. So it's a piece of information, piece of message that explores. So it's kind of like a spaceship, but it's a pod, and the pod is basically this video channel, this podcast channel, or this podcast, basically this what you are hearing, 10-minute audio is inside a pod, which is through the internet. It explores and it transports to your end, so from my end to your end. So this explore pod, I will be talking about why I like to keep a chart of zodiac signs, with people's names on them. And I've heard people say, like, okay, so why do you do that? Why do you keep a chart of zodiac signs and stuff? And they guess, like, are you trying to find the right match? Do you read the daily horoscopes and whatnot? Actually, it's not really like that. It's not that obvious. I mean, it's not those for those obvious reasons. Of course, it does make sense to really analyze and realize the human uh, collective human pattern. So basically the main reason I like to keep a chart and categorize people in those 12 different zodiac columns is because, one, I can clearly compare and analyze the the um, the kind of like the statistics, creating my own data of statistics to see the patterns of behaviors in certain different individuals. Of course, it's not always the case, but oftentimes, if we really look into it, it does in fact align with the defined characters or different zodiacs. And again, I will say again that it will not always be correct, but I also look at it in a sense of human beings being like a developed, updated version of trees. So to compare with trees and human beings, another parallel comparison would be telephones and mobile phones. So telephone is would let's say it's a tree, telephone and a tree both connected to the ground, to the earth, to with wires. Trees have roots. Telephone has wires connected to the underground as well as above the ground. Well, existing above the ground trees and telephones with a lots of roots and wires. And mobile phones, being portable, human beings can also be moved, but both of them, human beings and mobile phones, needs to be charged or sleep, or uh, consume energy, foods. That's how I look at it. And then, why is this so important? So basically, the way these zodiacs are looked at, it was from the start, um, and also I'm a huge believer in solar system, magnetic fields, orbits, and frequencies and vibrations. I really believe in these kind of subjects and topics. And here's another look into it. So when a human being, or let's say a baby, is born in a certain day, and right when that baby, is comes out of the darkness, let's just say darkness, but from the womb onto the physical world on its own. So not on its own, outside. So it's on its own in a sense that it's a individual being without having a connector tied onto its belly button, right? So it's not tied to any specific individual, which is their mother. but it's a free spirit, a free individual. And right at that time, it's like when the sun ray, or the parallel direction of the sun light, will definitely has to do some sort of effect. The sun ray, parallel sun ray, uh, definitely has some sort of effect, as opposed to if the baby was born in the daytime, nighttime, this season, that season, this phase of time, and these kinds of things, right? And of course, that thing will not obviously be set and imprinted for the rest of their lives, but a huge proportion or huge percentage of their lives basically are. So I'll shift on to a species of, or subspecies of dogs, let's say, different breeds of dogs. Dogs like German Shepherd, Alsatians, they are fairly large in size. They are very intelligent in comparison to the rest of the dog breeds, right? And let's take Chihuahua, um, or a sausage dog, relatively smaller compared to the rest of the dog breeds. And you cannot make a Chihuahua into a German Shepherd. The different breeds. So, but they're both dogs. But for human beings, we are all Homo sapiens. We are all one species. Whereas some people, you can physically see them, they're over 6'5", some even, and I think the average basketball height is like 6'6" or 6'8". Most people, human beings, are not that tall, so we can actually see straight up that okay, that's a different kind of human subspecies. It's not really a human subspecies, but if you really think about it, as of today, we cannot genetically edit or upgrade our such physical bones and muscles and all this to be such, that tall. And same goes with other beings. Like some of them have significantly large ears, significantly smaller eyes. So these are like, of course, these are like kind of like, if we really have to say, it's like subspecies within Homo sapiens. It also factors in that thousands and thousands of years ago, from a handful of different species, one species came to be dominating all the other ones, and it was the Homo sapiens. So most of the human beings still currently existing on this earth, of course, are Homo sapiens, but also they have traces of different species that are, that were their ancestors, and that's really interesting to really factor in. And stuff like food allergies are, another type of branch within this topic. And natural and then it's crazy that also twins, like, they are kind of like, they were born from the same womb, and within similar time frame they experience similar kinds of emotions and feelings, kind of stuff. Subject is very controversial, but um, it is very interesting and helpful to kind of see the patterns of behaviors of different human beings, and categorizing them in different species, in a sense. So this is my reasoning on why I have this, zodiac chart. And of course, I think very few people I've showed it to very few people, and I used to have it on paper, but then I've shifted onto a secured digital chart. So yeah, I highly encourage you to have your own chart. But one downside to it is that you tend to move on to the conformative bias. So you automatically kind of adjust to your own chart, and kind of like make up own stories, kind of to match up with the same zodiac, with the same kind of people. So that's one of the things that we have to be careful with, being confirmative about the specific zodiac signs that we match people to. But yeah, it just helps us to really see a picture of this human society in our heads, or our connections we have. So it's like the village theory. We all have a village, we all have like a group, a community of people in our heads, and it's almost always within 200, 300 people. So we can kind of like categorize them in different sections, and next time we see a new person, it's like, oh, it's one of those species. It's one of those species. Now I know how to deal with them properly, or this is how they are likely to behave in these kind of situations, and this is how to deal with them. So it's like, it really helps in that sense. So yep, and I'm signing out like that. Peace.